welcome here to another episode of the Launch Button Podcast, where we help people fire their bosses, leave their job, and have fun doing it. So we've got all different types of people on here today. We've got one of our successful students that have gone out there, fired their boss. Now they're creating their dream life through real estate investing and business ownership. And that's the great thing about it. We need both in life. So today I want to introduce you to a very special guest of ours, Miss Karla Hill. She comes to us originally from New York, but she's in Philly now, and she's just setting the world on fire. Everything she touches, she manifests into her dreams. So Karla, welcome, and tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Oh, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. One of the things I always like to share, because it does tee it up for just my empowerment for my next steps, is that I recently released 85 pounds over the past 3 years. And the reason I say release as opposed to lose 85 pounds is because when you lose something, you go to try to find it. And I'm not trying to find it, right? So I've always struggled with my weight and struggled with things that I want. And that's part of life. That's what I've realized. It's not taking away the struggle, it's going through the struggle. And my background, just as you said, was born and raised in New York City, daughter of a immigrant. My mother's from Limon, Costa Rica. My dad was from Ondaw, South Carolina. And I share with people, where would two people from such different places meet, Limon, Costa Rica and Ondaw, South Carolina, except New York City, where they both wanted a better life. So I'm a first generation New Yorker. And that really forms the way that I see things and think, the work ethic. My mother worked really hard. She cleaned houses, worked her way up, went to school, went to college, became retired as a registered nurse supervisor, always worked. My dad could never work for anybody, so he owned a business with my uncles, parking garages. I worked in the family business. So both sides, right, working. They're like, get your schooling. So went to Baruch College in New York City, undergrad, majored in human resources, and continued that master's degree certifications. But I always knew that there was more, because even no matter how hard you work, you could not say, this is what I'm going to make. So I was always attracted to entrepreneurship as well. So I've been married for 35 years. My husband he's worked for people, but in the past 20 plus years, he has worked in real estate, and I've partnered with him as we owned a mortgage brokerage 30 years ago. We worked as real estate professionals and investors. So that's a little bit about me. And we are the proud parents of 2 sons.
Awesome. And you had that entrepreneur spirit from your dad from when you were a kid. And like you said, you were working in parking garages growing up. So you saw the hard work, the work ethic, like most first generation Americans, and their dream was for you to go to school and get a good education or a good job so you could have a better life, right?
Exactly.
Now you love helping people, hence the HR, and even in your entrepreneur journey, coaching people and helping them. So tell us what lights you up about helping people, and and you guys can see that, those of you guys on the video, as soon as I said helping people, Karla's smile got really right, like.
But it's, I think, and the theme throughout is you have to know yourself. What energizes me? What lights me up? And it is helping people, but it's getting the clarification. How do I like helping people? I like helping people in achieving their economic empowerment goals. It's very clear in terms of the 3 pillars, whether that's maximizing yourself in terms of career planning, business development. If you're meant to be an entrepreneur, do that, as well as asset building, so you can have some more passive income along the way also. So I'm very clear that that's part of my purpose.
Yeah, and I see you doing that in all the different aspects of what you're doing as you're building your coaching business here. But tell us a little bit about what got you involved in real estate. I know your husband was involved in it for a while, and then you joined one of our real estate investment communities. So tell us, what was the thought for doing that?
I believe it was very organic, right? Because it came from helping people, even though that didn't make my heart beat fast. And real estate is such a big industry as well. And it was moving people along that path, meaning from a renter to getting their first home. So one of my roles in my employment history was a facilities contract administrator for government. And I made that transition because I'm like, oh, I know real estate. I understand real estate. But any anybody that knows anything about facilities management, there's no people. There's people that are complaining and you never make them happy, whether it's the chillers, whether it's, the custodians are stealing, whatever they say, I got no fulfillment from that. So I'm like, that's not what I like. I like impacting people, helping them to develop wealth in terms of income. I know one of our son's tuitions, went to Georgetown University that came from an investment property that we liquidated. So it's just having options. I don't like when people don't, meaning me also, I don't like limited options. So I want to maximize that. I'm like, oh, this is something that could really help people, as we say, right? But you have to be specific in terms of what strategy that you're really looking at. Because people say real estate all the time, but it's really what aspect, that's an excellent question, what do I like about it? And it's the impact that it has on people from the wealth accumulation side.
Yeah, and it's funny because when I was in IT, I know IT and facilities work hand in hand, and everybody's always complaining it's we got to do this, or it's too hot, it's too cold, and that's all you hear is the negative side of it, and rarely do you get the compliments. And not only are you so we talk about corporate, but actually you were government, so you were like B2G, right, business to government, and that's even more red tape and more frustrating to get anything done, I'm sure.
Exactly, exactly. So I need to see growth. That I do a lot of assessments, certified in Myers-Briggs, Career Direct, DISC, every, and I take a lot on myself also. So I am, and if anybody that knows anything about strengths finders, I'm a maximizer. I can't work from limit. I have to work with potential and going somewhere. I can't do it. So I I'm intentional about working in those spaces.
And now you just, well, before we get to you firing your boss, let's step back. It was a year ago or so, as we're coming out of COVID, you were starting to really make that shift because you've been able to use, as you said, you guys have real estate investments. Your husband's a realtor. You guys do closings on that. So you've got that. And you really started making that shift into speaking on more stages. So talk about that because you started really going out there, looking for those opportunities, right, to
The
share your.
first Yes, it's I mean, actually I made the decision that I was going to leave 4 years ago. It was during COVID, right? And it was scary. But what helped me make that decision is one of the certifications that I achieved through virtually through COVID is becoming a certified career coach. And I was never a big person in terms of coaching because the term life coach, I'm like, I don't know, because I'm a nerd when it comes to career pathways. Right? I know there's 33,000 career pathways. I'm like, I don't understand what that is. But as I was going through becoming that certified career coach consultant, I I was being coached in that 16-week program. So because I just put my head down and keep working, but I'm like, I really don't love this. I could do it, right? And I really think the enemy is mediocrity. There's a lot of things I could, but what do I do exceptionally well? And that wasn't over the course of time. That was that moment of really looking and then becoming familiar. Oh, because if I'm in the space where people start counting down how many years they have, like, oh, you only have, I remember one of the deputies that hired me said, oh, I only have 17 years left to retire. I'm like, wow, that's not what I want to really look at, and no judgment. I just, in terms of what Karla wants. So it was over the course of time making that decision and moving closer. It's like, okay, if you're going to do this, you better start making the steps for that to happen in terms of pivoting, saying, okay, what other things do you want to do? What does that look like? What does GPS in my business, GPS career and business strategies? One of my favorite quotes is that your passion is your life's purpose seeking outward expression, attributing that to Bob Snyder. And but it really is your work is supposed to me is supposed to be an outgrowth of who you're supposed to be. It's not just something that you do minimally. So I that's what I look for, that synergy. So it was over the course of time leveraging who Karla is and what do I want to be and what do I want to show up for. So I'm still doing work in that, but I had to start. I had to first have the desire because there is some deprogramming that has to take place along the way. Because if I'm in a circle where people are just counting down how many years they have left to retire. I had to replace that with something. I'm still going to be in that place, but if I'm not actually planting other seeds to look at the potential, I would just go back and not do anything. So it's really intentional and making sure that you are expanding or deleting what you really have to do.
Yeah, and that's when we started working together. You started getting on a lot of the calls that we do and being able to get in there and start to surround and just bounce ideas off of, hey, you're thinking about this, right? So tell everybody a little bit about that group and the support you've gotten from that community
Oh,
on the calls.
yeah, so you are the in terms of consistent daily action, right? I think of you. I even have the t-shirt. Well, one of the things that came up in terms of my assessments is that one of my primary traits is that I'm unstructured. I may do, I don't know how I may do, but one of the things I needed, and that was very critical in my weight release as well, that I needed a formula, a system, something like in terms of the weight release, I don't eat sugar, I don't eat flour. And some people like might say, oh, that's very restrictive, but that's what I needed. I needed that structure. So I need structure in all of those areas of my life, whether it's faith, fitness, family, finance. And what your group added to me was a space where I can process. Now, like I said, I wasn't big into coaching, but now I really do know that what coaching really is intentional space for you to work on yourself. So one of the first things I said, okay, I want to talk to 5 people a day to build my practice. And the feedback that I got from you is like, you don't control who you speak to, you control who you call, right? But if they don't pick up the line and you don't meet and they're not available, then your consistent daily result is not there. But you didn't have 100% control. I have control over how many calls I make per day, right? So that was huge. It sounds like a little thing, but that's what coaching does. I just needed a little thing. Now, okay, yes, I'm going to make X number of calls, 5 calls per day. But then, okay, who are you calling? What are the results of those calls? But if I didn't start with make the calls, now it's becoming even clearer who I should be calling. I should be having some growth calls, some sales calls, or just intentional business people I'm looking for there. But yes, part of it, I would, in those other calls, I was counting my fulfillment calls in terms of my appointments. So yes, I'm delivering services, but if I want to continue to grow, I need a certain percentage of those calls to be calls for new business. So it's the consistency of showing up and listening to other voices besides yourself, because you can psych yourself out all the time, like, oh, I'm busy, I'm doing this. No, and people are like, well, what are you really doing? And that accountability, right? So that's what the group gives me, that intentional space of putting out there. And I used to say, oh, I love accountability, I don't love accountability. What I realize is that I need accountability to accomplish my goals.
Yep. And those little distinctions, those little shifts, those little tweaks are often the difference between success and failure, right? And you started having that, and I saw you start to like explode after you made that slight shift because you were getting super frustrated being an executive type. You were getting super frustrated. You're like, I'm making the calls, but it's taking too long. And then you started getting on some stages, and then I know I got to thank you. You invited me down to speak at the Women Empowerment event. I think it was still during COVID. We were just at the end of COVID, where
Correct.
they did that event in Philadelphia about women empowerment and financial wealth. And you had Dr. Frazier there. You had lots of different people there. So tell everybody a little bit about how you got into that community and how you've been moving into different communities.
See, what I really coach people on is first step is assessing your strengths. It's almost like in business, we talk about the SWOT analysis. What are your strengths, your weaknesses? What are the opportunities and the threats? I love people in that economic zone, especially. So a large part of what I do are my networks, and it's authentic, right? I care about the empowerment of others. I've always helped people in those areas. So I've built up a trust there, and I want to be there. I'm not there just to uh, get business. I'm there to usually the relationships start from some other places. So I leverage my relationships and I want to help people in in those areas. But it's almost like another theme that came from a Black women's group in the 1920s, a lift while we climb, right? I'm very ambitious. I want more, but I don't want it for my just for myself. I want others to come along. And people, I think, are attracted to that. I tell people I'm looking for people looking for me. So, and it's, I'm full of those little quotes, right? The Kenyan proverb: if you want to go fast, go by yourself. If you want to go far, go with others. So people will invite you in. People like to do business with who they like and trust. So, but that's people pick that up if it's authentic or not.
And that's what we talked about, right? We got to start with like, then we go to trust, then we go to business. And most people do that wrong, right? They do it in the reverse order. They're like, hey, let's do business. And then, somebody's like, well, I don't really know who you are. Why would I do business? I see that all the time at networking events and things like, that event led you into other events, and that now you're getting out there and doing different things. So tell us about one of your favorite real estate projects.
So I would say it's seeing people move from, like, even if there are Section 8 tenants, right? But helping that same person get their first house as well. Just in the past 6 months, talking about trust and help, since my husband Jerry and I've been in real estate so long, some of my mentees, some of my coaching clients that I've helped with careers, they've moved along. They're our son's generation where we are now helping them move from renters, but they didn't believe that they could do it. Just in the past 4 months, helping close to half a dozen people become young people, millennials, and on our way to alphas, making sure that they are getting what they're supposed to get, becoming first-time home buyers as well as investors with duplexes, right? But painting the picture. So it's moving people along that path. And I personally, in terms of strategy, I like that long-term, consistent cash flow of Section 8. We have a mixed-use commercial building where we've had long-term tenants in the Section 8 side, and some in the commercial that's not Section 8 in the commercial, but the duplex up top. So that's that, because I don't have those skills or the interest in the facilities and the flipping side. I like the consistent during pandemic, the Section 8 money hits your account.
Yep.
I like that. And yes, we've had some negative consequences with Section 8 also, where you have to evict and all that other kind of stuff. But overall, that's what I prefer. And moving people, and people will keep using you also, meaning that if they become comfortable, yes, Jerry and Karla can help with this. And one of my favorites was a commercial transaction that we had. So my oldest son works for a law firm. One of the lawyers had a client that was needed to place this building over $1 million, and said, "Can you help us?" Now, our youngest son went to a school, so it's relationships. So we got the deal because of our oldest son, but then we had the buyer also because we like, oh, this school is right next to there. Hey, do you have any interest in expanding? We have a building that's right in your area, that part of your campus. It's not a college, it was like a private school, and got both sides, right? Over a very nice commission. So again, relationships and closing and just putting ourselves in the middle there.
And we're gonna have more details on the real estate when we get into the private podcast here with Karla. So make sure you go to the launch button podcast.com, enroll there, and you'll get the bonus sections that we're going to do for that and dive a little deeper on that. Well, now that you've released your job, your work, what's Karla's plan here as we move forward?
So it's really building my practice. The focus is going to be on the peak performance of others in their work environment in terms of, but it's my methodology. It really starts with knowing your purpose. I really believe you can't reach your peak if you're not bringing your best. I think most professionals, they're like, oh, I guess your mind will play tricks. Oh, I guess I can do this. Oh, we have this great opportunity. Oh, a lot of people come to me, oh, can you help me find a position? What do you want to do? Oh, I'll take anything. I don't know how to look for anything. So it starts with really finding your purpose. And then that second part is the energy, right? In terms of making sure we are our own best asset. So there's going to be blockages. Yeah, you can have your superpower, you can know what you want to do. But if your infrastructure, meaning you are not ready to grow and receive, and you don't have the energy, you're not sleeping properly, all those things can really derail it. But then you have to take action as well. What actions, and coming from you, what are you going to be what's your system? What are your consistent daily actions, right? And then that K in peak is knowledge and education. I'm going to have to continuously learn and apply and be uncomfortable with being comfortable with being uncomfortable in terms of making sure that you're learning. So it's building that practice. But my foundation is the assessments. I'm sorry. It's just like if, you went to a doctor, and the doctor says, oh, all men that age have what's going on. Well, here, just take this as your prescription. But they didn't do any blood work. They didn't ask you your symptoms. They didn't say, okay, what's your family history? That's where it starts. And then I can help someone go to that next level. So I'm very happy that one of my focus groups, I just got certified in 12 to 16-year-olds for their peak performance. I had an athlete, number 3 in the state, track and field in high school. So in terms of, imagine when at 16 what your superpowers are. I compare it to the theory of compound interest. If you're 45 and you learn about compound interest and you actually execute and implement, you'll be okay. But imagine when you're 12
Right.
and you come up with that. So it's the same thing with planning out your destiny as it relates to your work or your career, right? So that's what I add value in, and I love it. That's what gives me energy. I could do back to back to back, but build assessments of people, because I that's art to me. I love watching biographies. I love watching, but most people are just floating around, just thinking, oh, Uncle U was a police officer. He was an IT. I'm going to do that. They have no clue. If you ask a 10-year-old in New York City, a 10-year-old in Lamont, Costa Rica, where my mom's from, or Philadelphia, they're going to say the same 10 occupations, doctor, lawyer. They want some, but if you know first what your design is, then I can help navigate you to what those occupations should be.
Yeah. And that's a huge thing, right? People just sort of follow family trees or family paths, and you know, then later on life, like they have some trauma, like we say, like in the launch button book where we talk about that, right? Then you have some trauma, and then all of a sudden you're like, what do I do? I'm not happy. So let's
Exactly.
find out what makes you happy now. And Karla, just remind me to make sure I connect you with Jim Dowd. He does all the hockey players. He does peak performance for hockey players.
Oh, wow. That'd be
Well,
great, you. Thank
he'll,
you.
he'll he'll be on the podcast shortly after yours releases. So with that, and so as you guys are growing, and it's all about building the network and building the connections. And Karla, where can they learn more about you?
Yes, you can go to karlahill.net. I have the website there. I just recently purchased karlahill.com, so that's great. So I'll be transitioning everything there, but karlahill.net is where you can go now.
Awesome. Well, go check out karlahill.net. And then in the future, you'll have a better site as you're expanding and growing. And she's going to get it out there. And Karla, I just want to congratulate you on being an example of consistent daily action and pushing yourself to that next level and not being able to afraid to take the next step. So congratulations. Is there any last parting words you would like to say to anybody?
Yes, I want to thank you for your ongoing support and pouring into me as well, and just your commitment to the community. And I just want to let people know that find out who you are first and then lean in. But spend that time. This is a great period of time to know who you are and then see what the market wants. So make sure you take that action.
Awesome. Congratulations. And we look forward to seeing everybody on the next episode of The Launch Button. As Karla Hill says, find out who you are and then take consistent daily action to lead you towards your goals, because we're either moving closer or further from our goals each and every day. And we want you moving closer so you can have that peak performance that she talks about. And we'll see everybody on the next episode of The Launch Button. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on the Launch Button podcast, your gateway to unlocking your true potential and pursuing your passions. Don't let the journey end here. For more empowering insights, valuable resources, exclusive content, and free giveaways, visit www.thelaunchbuttonpodcast.com.